Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final session of the Historic Mapping Congress annual meeting. Again, I am Lauren. I'm one of the education specialists at the museum, and the museum is delighted to host this particular meeting on our Zoom platform here today. Just a quick reminder, Zoom has a number of different features to help you out here. You can pin videos by clicking the three little dots. So I highly recommend pinning Hugh's picture since he's our host today. So that you can always know what's going on. We do ask that you leave your microphone muted during the different kind of portions where someone is talking or things like that. But I saw from our previous meeting that everyone did a great job with that. So I think it should be a great conversation exploring the map. We are delighted that you all were able to join us this morning and this afternoon for this particular presentation. The museum always enjoys spending time hearing about history and hearing what people are doing to help research and help save and preserve history as well. So I am going to turn this over to Hugh Dusick here, who is your fearless leader today. And I will be in the chat and I will be happy to share any resources, links, things like that as we go along.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. Here we are again. And first of all, I'd just like to express my thanks to the Charlotte Museum of History, to Lauren and Angel and to Adria and everybody who's been involved with helping us organize this meeting today. And so we really appreciate your help with making this happen. Thank you very much. So that's with the Charlotte Museum of History, who've been really very successful with a lot of online programs, and they've been able to help us too. Well, what we're going to be looking at today is work on the composite map, and Steve has been very involved with that. Steve Katzberg has been very involved with that in making that happen, and also Guy has been involved as helping us out with that too, and Guy Wallace, and we much appreciate that help in making these this map happen. Now it is as a you probably get the idea. It is a work in progress, but it is a composite interactive map. Now we still have questions. We have questions about particularly what we need to include on the map, and what points do we need to include on the map, and how can we include this information in there? How can we collect information? How can we make links available? But we do have a composite map, and it is available at the Historic Mapping Congress website. You can go there and you can click on it and you can look at it and do things, and as they like to say in the modern world, play around with it. Now we still have this question about what is the technology we want to use. Do we want to use QGIS, ArcGIS, Google Maps? But as I pointed out before, I think this is all going to change down the road, and in a certain way, just as long as we can get something going, the technology we have, it's not particularly important. It would be better perhaps to have another technology, but at least we've got something going which we can use and we can do and we can put information in. So we'll collect questions along the way, and we'll look at some of the if you have questions about the map and what we're doing, just put it in the chat there, and we'll get to that. So we've got an hour here, and I'm going to hand it over to Steve, and he's going to show us what he's been doing with the map.
Thanks, Hugh. It's kind of hard to figure out exactly what you want to do with a map. It seems to me like if for Charlotte in particular, if you're trying, let's say there's some attempt to recreate Charlotte in the late 1700s, and let me say about that. I mean, is people hearing me? Am I coming through? I don't know if I got a good link or not.
Sound great.
Okay. What we would like to do, it seems, is for generating a canvas, particularly like for Mecklenburg County and Charlotte. if there's a desire to kind of recreate Charlotte in 1789 or 1760, whatever, or 67 or whatever it was first established as a city. And oddly enough, Dave, probably my mother's ancestors came through Charlotte. Actually, they came through before there was a Charlotte in the upstate of South Carolina, in the old wagon road that came down. So they probably came through there to get to Lawrence County. But the idea of actually producing a representation, maybe at the library, maybe the historical museum, to put a representation of Charlotte around that time, because there was a huge amount of Revolutionary War activity that went there. There were Indian wars, there were the actual settlement. But to understand how that happened, the map helps you do that. So, perhaps in that context, having a map or map canvas that you can put sites and locations and try to really turn the hands of time back. The map is just basically a substrate for the history that went on there. But it does help in putting things into geographical context, and then being able to believe that you have the roads accurately laid out, or some reasonably accurately laid out. You can enhance the events that went on at that time. So what I've done is I've used QGIS, and I will point out that there are layers of what's a user interaction with some of these maps that Dave has identified, that Guy has talked about. Google, just using Google Earth or Google Maps, then going to a point where you can do some georeferencing, which is what you can do with the georeferencing tools that are on there. But ultimately, to be able to general access, you need a GIS system. And if you don't want to pay for one, the only one, and a very powerful one that's out there, it's ridiculed by the ArcView people or ArcGIS people, but it's really giving them a horrendous run for the money, is called Quantum GIS, or QGIS is what I use. And it's a serious GIS system. What that gives you is all the complete access to the ability to overlay modern geographical features on top of the maps, do georeferencing in the maps, and to add all kinds of features, and then publish that as a web page. So that's, I think that people who don't want to pay Esri for the software, those are governments and stuff, and they're putting money into Quantum GIS. So it's a very, very, very capable system. Okay, given that Google Maps is okay to use, the tools for georeferencing are fine to use, and insofar as you can save that stuff and reuse it, you ultimately want to put it on some quantitative canvas like QGIS. So what I've done. Oh, and I want to point out this too. I mean, there's only so much you can do with the old maps, because there was no way that people back then could accurately map where they were, except in fairly crude ways, to know how one place across Mecklenburg County was actually physically, topographically related to another place on there. You had to be able to measure longitude and latitude, or be very accurate surveying. So these old maps, particularly the ones we're talking about, Luzon and Cook, and before that, the DeBron maps, they're just loaded with errors. I mean, they're just clearly, they got roads where roads didn't exist. They don't have roads where roads existed. They got rivers, and but because there was just physically, there was no way to actually lay out on a rational grid, latitude and longitude, or universal transverse Mercator, or any of the other kind of mapping systems, quantitative mapping systems. So, and also another way it seems to me it's good is that is that if you go back in time, it's not real hard to go back and find maps that let you look what 1940 Charlotte looked like, or 1907 Charlotte looked like, Mecklenburg County, or 1880s. It's when you get back to where the ability to actually accurately locate yourself on the earth or on some quantitative grid in latitude and longitude, or northings and eastings, or whatever. When you get to about 1800, before that, that capability didn't exist. So the older maps are where you really want to do the research. You don't need to do the maps in 1947 or find out what roads are under Lake Jordan or some kind of thing like that, or Jordan Lake, whatever they call it. But so anyway, what I've done is as a starting point, and these maps would be available. Download them if you like with the world files. If you have an image with a world file, then you can put those on any system that's designed to put accurate maps that have been georeferenced. So any of those will be available. Anybody who wants to use them. What the idea might be that at the museum or at the library, there would be somebody who would have access to those maps. I'm happy to supply them. And then you can go and look at items on them. You can critique them. You can try to, the only thing you can't do with them, unless you have QGIS set up, and that would be a great thing for a library or a museum to teach people to use. Some of that stuff is pretty easy to do at the highest levels, and there's a way more levels that I cannot possibly do. So anyway, having a map like that that's available to people, I'm happy to give you the ones. It's just like the ones I have. It's just like Hugh said, they're work in progress, and I'll just want to show you on some of the imagery I've got so far of what I've done. First of all, on the two maps, the Graham map, the John Graham map, 1789, a wonderful hybrid between a plat and a map, because it has physical features on it, creeks, rivers. Those don't much change. People move them, people do move them or redam them up or whatever. But if you take immutable features like that, that's what's on the plat. And that's what makes the plat way better than this huge number of plats we've got down here in Orangeburg County without a geophysical feature on them. There's no way they can be georeferenced. But the Graham map is a wonderful hybrid. So anyway, I'm just going to put these up, see if I can make this work. And like I said, on that Charlotte, on the www.charlottetownroads.net, the maps that I've done, including two of the ones, or two links up at the top. And what I wanted to show you is the ones that like when we took the Graham map. Let me see if I can find that. If nobody minds, I'll put this up here. Let me see this one. Let's take this one. Can everybody see that?
Not yet.
No, we're not seeing your screen.
No. All right, let me share my screen. Hang on. I'm trying to get back to the, there we are. Well, I think that's where I am. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Share screen. Okay, this one. I want the, let's see there. This, oh, well, this is actually, well, we can go ahead and start with this. This is taking two of the topographic U.S. Corps of Engineer maps with the brown and, I call it brown and stone, it has a huge long name, that was pretty reasonably georeferenced. As you can see on this one here, the blue line that says, that goes near Tuckasegee Ford, you can see that the actual path of the center line of the Catawba doesn't match what they surveyed back in 1808. But the kind of things that you can do like this is I have tried to mark out on this map using the background map behind it is the georeferenced brown and stone map. So that I can just send that to anybody that wants it with the world file. But you can see here that some of the roads and some of the creeks and some of the features on there that have been that I put on this thing to show you where we stand, kind of like with probably where I stand with probably the best surveyed map available for the Mecklenburg area. And I'd like to show the others if I can figure out how to do it. But this right now, this map back behind, the one that's been the old hand done map, not the modern topographic maps. You can see about how well you can line things up with the rivers, the locations, and see how well that map does. Now, like I say, I can make that available to anybody, and actually the map behind it, the one that's got nothing on it, I can send it with the features on it. Unless it owns a GIS system, though, there's not much you can do with them. You can look at it and decide whether or not. Now, what this one was designed to do was to try to find out what I was trying to do was an example of using that map. And I'll give you a blow up and closer. How did you get from Charlotte to Tuckasegee Ford? Because it's pretty clear that on this map on the left, the topographic map, the Corps of Engineers map, there's a little town called Tuckasegee Ford back in 1917 or 14 when this map was done. And then you can see the possible roads that now exist in Charlotte that could have gone out there to it. And you can see also, if I can figure out how to blow this thing up, if you went to let me see if I can do that. Let me see. This one here. Now, this is where I've blown that area up, and you can see these roads right here, and the original roads coming into Charlotte did cross where people think they cross, but that's not shown here on this map. You have to go look at the actual brown and stone map that was georeferenced behind this. And this is, so what you do is you take this, you have a 1904, I believe, no, I think that's 1940, I forget. Anyway, the map here that we have of downtown Charlotte, the topographic quarter quad that was done there, plus the one over here, and that's Gastonia quarter quad, I think. And you can see where how the roads tried to get to Tuckasegee Ford. So if you want to lay out a path for, say, a tourist and say, well, how did you get, where would I go next on my travels through the Revolutionary War roads? You can see pretty much for certain that, there are no, the green dotted lines are actually modern roads from North Carolina, the full data set from the North Carolina Department of Transportation for the roads that exist. And I've identified the ones that appear to go over to Tuckasegee Ford. And so what you do is you take something like this and say, okay, we're going to try to map this out. We start with the very best that we've got, and we try to find out what roads get us over there and run off to the northwest some way, or connect, not even necessarily northwest, but over Tuckasegee Ford. You can even make out the name on there, I think, at the crossing of the little town that was over there. Anyway, so you can see as you go out what appears to be now called Wilkinson Boulevard. As you head out that way, the road or Tuckasegee Road, which one might have gone over, but you can see when they kind of come together, there's a missing chunk in between where Wilkinson and Tuckasegee meet, and then you head on off to Tuckasegee Ford. Those roads on the other side that are marked there are marked Tuckasegee Ford. That's their name, Tuckasegee Ford Road, both of them, the one that goes north and one that goes west. And so there's a gap in there, and I don't know, and what you would use this thing as a starting point to say, okay, how did they actually get to Tuckasegee Ford from downtown? Some of these roads up here at the top, that's the one that says Freedom Drive, comes back over that way along a thing called Wilson Chapel Road. And I'm sorry, Morris Chapel Road. So this is this is where we stand with, I stand with one example of this. And let me back up. Well, I mean, unless there's some questions in that. This is what I've been trying to do, is to put the maps together. These are all georeferenced on top of one another. These are topographically and cartographically correct insofar as you can georeference these things, as you can see, oriented in the direction they ought to be. They're overlaid in the location. The roads join up one to the other. I can show that if I can put the other maps. But this is what you would get by trying to put a background map canvas, which is on the website. So if you go to the website, www.charlottetownroads.net, you can click on the background map, the georeferenced map, and you can zoom into it for a bit. You can also get in there far enough that it actually will switch back to a modern road map, which you can download over the web. You can see what you've got, you know, where that thing overlays. So that's what I've got right now, is at least trying to put us together something that might be of use in trying to identify the roads in Mecklenburg County that relate to the period of the Revolution. So that's kind of where I am now.
That's great, Steve. Can you take us to the interactive map, the one that we can actually zoom in and out on with the points? Steve, you're muted.
Yeah, you guys could do that too by going to using an iPhone, iPad, whatever. This is let me share my. Can you see that on the screen?
She sent the link in the chat where you can go to the interactive map.
This is it right now. Can you see it on your screens?
No, we're still seeing the brown map.
Okay, hang on. Let me see if I can.
At the beginning of this meeting, everyone, I placed the link to the website in the chat. So if you guys want to bring it up on your own screen, you're welcome to explore that way as well. It's the charlottetownroads.net.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to switch to.
I think what happened, you need to, if you stop share screen and then start it again and pick the upper left corner that says full screen.
Okay.
Because what happens, it locks you into one screen if you pick it, and then you can't switch to other ones. It's kind of a pain. But
how about that?
One that says full screen, you can see whatever you're seeing.
Is that on there now?
Perfect.
That's
perfect.
it. Great. That's good.
Now this is just the modern map. This is this you can download this. It's a generally available open source map. And you can see, for example, it is active enough. You can turn on and off certain of the creeks, some of the roads. There's a road system that I'm not sure why it's aware. It's called Congress 250 roads. And then you can turn those on and off yourself. You can zoom in with this thing, as you see just with your mouse. Now, what I'm going to do is turn on here. You can do the stone and brown map with the same overlay, and then you can switch back and forth with that. So here you see the crossroad. This is as good as it has been that I've been able to georeference these. As you can see, the map is torn. So consequently, no simple mathematical transformation is going to georeference that thing and fix the tears. So you get, the better your map you get, then you're down to the actual real errors. This is what Brown and Stone surveyed in 1808. And you can see now, if you scroll over, you can see Tuckasegee Ford, and you can see some of the roads headed that way. I believe this is probably Tuckasegee Road. But to get back, you'd have to go back and get I don't have this. I'm not a web builder. I did this from QGIS, and this, at least you can see the roads that are headed out of Charlotte, and you can identify the roads I can't click on each one of the roads. I don't think they'll respond, but the little, if you click on the little dots and stuff, that was the material that was sent to me from Hugh. If you click on them, they'll actually tell you what they have, what they are. And you can see the relationship where they might have been on creeks and stuff like that. Obviously, Brown and Stone, what I call them Brownstone, helps me to remember who they were. They did a really good job for their time, because there were very few ways in order to actually measure relative longitude and latitude between two different points. But anyway, this is an example of, let's see, I don't know if you can zoom in one more. You click in, you can, and then you can scroll it back and forth to look at Tuckasegee Ford. By the way, you can see that's Tuckasegee is 1E back then. But anyway, this is what like I say, I've done this. That map that we're looking at is the Brown and Stone georeferenced map, the best georeferencing I've done. If you scroll it down, you can see that there were still problems with with getting it to map in with where the bend was in the Catawba. So there's still fundamental errors in the ancient maps. But this is as far back, I think. Oh, not true. This, and going back to this wonderful John Graham map, is about as far back as you can go before. You cannot trust a single map before that time that I've found. That means the Fadden map, the Cornwallis's marches, the Mouzon map, the Cook map, the Brom map. They just lost in the mists of time, and they did not know where they were, and they just guessed on a whole lot of what they were doing. But this one is very good.
Yeah, that's great. Steve, can you go back to the modern map? Would that be possible?
Actually, all you got to do is zoom in past what the, well, actually, yeah, let me do that. If you zoom in past what the Stone and Brown and Stone map, then.
Oh, okay, look, I did it. So there we are. That's so. Well,
and you can click on those, like.
So this, these are points that I sent over to Steve, and he put them on, and that's great. Thank you, Steve. And we're collecting these points. So I think one question is, well, what points do we want to have on this map, which is very interactive. We can put them on here.
Let me point one other thing out real quick here, Hugh. That remember that we've got the other map on it here, and I tried to overlay the road to Tuckasegee Ford. If you'll take a look at that, the interstate has messed up a bunch of stuff. But looking at this thing here, you can see the over here by at the Ford that roads that actually got you there and got you across and where they went are unknown. And not even on modern maps of Charlotte. You can zoom in and there's nothing down there. So I just wanted to point out that that's where the old maps and stuff, they had to get from to the crossing from some way. And the issue for historians in and around Charlotte is what roads are now missing that were there that got you from Tuckasegee Road or Wilkinson Boulevard that got you to the feeder to Tuckasegee Ford, if in fact that's the original Tuckasegee. It certainly looks like that from the 1808 map, but that seems to me that's what historians need to do, is to correct this map, or fill out the map, lay on there the actual roads, so that you can say this is how you got from here in the museum or the library, how you got to Tuckasegee Ford in 1789.
That's right. Yes. Do you think old plats could be of any help? I know old plats, sort of putting them on modern maps is a bit difficult, but perhaps that might show the gaps in between, even if there's no other evidence, because we know where the Tuckasegee Ford. Oh, look, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but over the Tuckasegee Ford by the Whitewater Center, we can see the remains of where the ford was. And so obviously somehow or other, there must be a route that we can follow.
With the old plats, Hugh, it just all depends on the surveyor. Some of them put an incredible amount of detail, including the road that goes through it, and others just had the outline of the property. There are people who have done areas of North Carolina that I've seen who've done an incredible job of platting all the original grants. Unfortunately, nobody's done it for Mecklenburg, but you kind of have to do it as a jigsaw puzzle. Since one piece doesn't give you enough information, you start putting the pieces together. Because it says this property is adjacent to that property. And once you get it all put together, if you can do it, and the one guy I talked to has been spending 30 years doing it.
Yeah, I got the impression it's kind of a thing.
Yes, it is. But like I said, it's not a trivial thing to do.
That's great. And another useful thing about this map is and by the way, it's available. It says at the Historic Mapping Congress website. You can get there from our website. Is that you can put overlays on this? Isn't that right, Steve? You can put overlays, for instance, like all the highway markers of North Carolina. We haven't done that, but we could put overlays on this of other information. So
oddly enough, when you go back, when you have a base map like this, you can take this map because it's georeferenced and stretched, rotated north south, try to fit features. You could take this map and actually try to use it on Google Earth, and then overlay your own stuff on there if you wanted to. And that's the advantage of having a georeferenced map like that. But absolutely, yeah, you can put stuff on top of it.
I mean, it seems like we've got an incredible opportunity to do all kinds of things with this. Now, one question: it would be great if we when we click on a site like for instance, the Sugor Creek Presbyterian Church, that you get all kinds of information, that you can get links, and you can get, so you don't just get the name, but you can get the actual links to information about it and resources about it. So that would be a great feature. Another would be, we haven't quite worked out how to get the names of the roads very clearly. So when you click on the road, you can click on the road, but it would be helpful to get more information when you click on the road about the road itself. We can, we've got the names, but.
Well, Hugh, the point to this is that, and I want to point this out to Lauren, if she's still on there, or whoever's watching this for us at the museum or the library. The QGIS is free. There's no money involved. They could have a computer set up somewhere, and people could add their own points and come in and do it. All you got to do is just install it. And what would help, or what could happen from that point is somebody in the library who manages the website could then just transfer this stuff. There's software or sections of the QGIS that produces a web map. That's where this came from. And somebody that knows what they're doing, instead of a hacker like me on something like that, could take what comes off of the QGIS and put it on experimental websites or maps and stuff where people are looking at stuff, because it doesn't cost you anything. And if they don't mind picking up the extra work to do it at the library or museum, it's an easy thing to do.
Steve, we appreciate your suggestion and the like. This is definitely a board level decision for us. There's a lot of different kind of moving parts involved and a lot of different voices that would need to be involved in that conversation. So we are definitely happy to kind of share your suggestions and things like that. And of course, the Mapping Congress themselves needs to meet about this and the like, but it's not something that we could agree to today in today's meeting. But we definitely appreciate your suggestions and your ideas for kind of making all of this information more readily available. And of course, we'll be happy to speak with you and kind of offer some suggestions as well of different organizations you could partner with and the like. So thank you very much for your suggestion. We'll definitely pass it along.
Yeah, but I'm not really suggesting that you do anything. I'm just saying a library or a museum can do this. And we had thought about doing that with with the Calhoun County Museum over in Calhoun County in St. Matthews, that they would, at their museum, that they would be the host for this, the Historic Mapping Congress stuff. And that's about all you need to do, is just find somebody that wants to host it. No, I'm not specifically saying you guys are doing it, but the bigger the organization is, the more likely that the support would be available. You could get it. And it would be a neat feather in the cap for an organization like some library or something like that, to have that capability there, that people could come in and work on that, and they could actually get their results published on the website.
Of course. We'll speak further with you offline about all of this information. It seems like it's a longer conversation, and I'd hate to take away from your sharing all of the work that you guys have done on this map, which, by the way, is just absolutely wonderful. And we've been placing some links to some of the plat maps we're talking about. I see David, oh, thank goodness, put the land grants website that I was trying frantically to find in there. So definitely lots and lots of resources available. It's amazing to see what is possible. With technology, especially. We think of history as all being in the past, but it's just amazing the things that we do. I think about writing my master's thesis now with the technology available. It would be a completely different project.
It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. So got a little time left here, and perhaps, well, would folks like to think about some questions? Are there some questions that you think we need to investigate about this area here in the Revolutionary era? I think one of them we've identified already. One of them is the route of the Tuckasegee Ford Road. That's one question. Does anybody have anything to say about that particularly? Anybody online here with us today?
Yes, I might have be
Bill,
able to help. And first of all, Steve, thank you very much for your interest in Mecklenburg County, even though you reside in around Orangeburg. But appreciate all you've done on this. This is fantastic. But just to add a couple of points, it's often that if you're trying to plot roads, you're faced with how to figure out where an old road was, just as you were referring a few minutes ago as to the route across what's now the Whitewater Center down to Tuckasegee Ford. Well, if you don't have an old map, and this also alludes back to what Jim Williams brought up in his first presentation this morning. Roads often converged on fords. So, and those roads in old times typically followed a ridge line. So if you have no other source of good information, like an old map, for example, often the best guess is just to take ridge lines and follow, or that is roads between major creeks, and follow that down to the ford. That's might be the best guess that you can make when you don't have any better information. And then more specifically about the Tuckasegee Road itself, if you I suspect it was, as you have drawn it, up to Moore's Chapel Road, then Freedom Drive, and there's a small segment of a street that's known today as Tuckasegee Road. And I presume it has that name because it was part of the old road leading from Charlotte to Tuckasegee Ford. But it's just a short segment of a road that still has the name Tuckasegee Road. And that essentially was, again, was as you have drawn it from the ford itself up to Moore's Chapel Road, then Freedom Drive, then that short segment of Tuckasegee Road, and then into Charlotte, converging with the road that led to Beatty's Ford, near where the Johnson C. Smith University is today, and then leading into town, which is West Trade Street. That would be my guess, but I can't say that I know that positively, of course, but it's just a guess as to how the old Tuckasegee Road was to Tuckasegee Ford back in the 1780s. So that's my only input.
Very good, Bill. Let me add something to that. Some years back, I got interested in Tuckasegee Ford because of the Mapping Congress, and dug into it. Yeah, the Whitewater Center has taken perhaps part of that road, although south of the Whitewater Center, there's a place I've got a photograph of, which is an old road. Now, whether that's an old farm road or the old Tuckasegee Road is it not possible to tell. I have walked that and come to a place I think is where the Ford started. There's an island that's on the maps that the Ford crosses. And on the far side of the road, far side of the Catawba, there's a creek that might be part of that. The problem is that the Tuckasegee Ford was said to be 1 to 3 feet deep. Today, that's covered by Lake Wiley, and it's about 30 feet deep. I've gone out in a kayak and done soundings and found a bottom at 10 or 12 feet, but that's probably because it's silted up. So if you wanted to find Tuckasegee Ford, you'd have to drain the lake and excavate all that silt. So, but
Yeah.
So you know, we're really kind of guessing, but I'm certain that Tuckasegee, well, and it's very obvious the Tuckasegee Ford ran across that island, and the island's still there. So you know, we know where it is. We just don't know exactly how it got there. And these were never mapped. When you wanted to have a road, you made a petition and said, I want a road from here to there. And the county court, the JP court, appointed somebody to go out and lay it out. And they did. And you have information about it. Went by this fellow's house and that fellow's house and the place where there used to be a barn and so on. But and presumably you could lay that out on a map, but you'd have to plot all of the property in that whole area from the deeds, from the original deeds and grants, which is a big job.
Am I correct that sometimes these roads moved because in the summer you would use one road and in the winter you would use another road, and it might sort of depend on the season when exactly where this road was going. It wasn't always fixed exactly in one place. Is that correct? I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, one thing is for sure, if you, one of the advantages of having a QGIS system is you can put the 1940 or 1914 or 1906, whichever one of the Charlotte quarter quads, because they've been making these topographic maps by the Department of War before, I guess, and the Corps of Engineers have done those. And you can see clearly that roads that are now on the modern road system that were definitely moved or didn't exist, they were rerouted by 1940, and then of course my modern stuff. So that's one of the things that you can do with this stuff is like you can start peeling back the hands of the clock, sands of time, and see that happen. But absolutely, they were moved, even though, and it might have the very same name it had in 1904. It's just, and it's been laterally moved. It was straightened out, or whatever. It happens all the time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Now talking about the old maps, there's a website that I can't quote to you on the road maps, and the problem in Mecklenburg County, well, the problem is that the early geological maps from the government were drawn by the county surveyors. And if a county surveyor didn't want to draw that map, then there is no map. So you go back to, I think it's 1890, 1910, there's no geological map of Charlotte. There is a beautiful one of North Mecklenburg County, and they're over in Lincoln County, but there are these gaps where nobody drew a map. And the earliest map you can find of Charlotte, I think it's something like 1940. So, there's problems. There's now, when those maps were made, they were accurate.
The Charlotte topographic map I've got, I think the earliest one is like 1904. You have to hunt for it. And let me point out another thing about the topographic maps. Back to Bill Anderson. That's the other thing that you can do with QGIS. It's designed also to handle topography. So you can actually search the topography looking for, what he was saying. What was the local ridge? Where were the high points around that? And when they were having tsunami over there in Indonesia, I gave the students at South Carolina State, this graduate class I was teaching, I gave them an assignment. I said, take a look at the topographic maps for this area. And if we had a tsunami that came all the way up from Charleston, tried to wash away Orangeburg, what would be the best route out of town? Meaning, like Bill was saying, a ridge. And other than the fact that I got a whole bunch of them, just showed me some Google maps, they failed. No, I mean, that is, but that's exactly the same thing. You could use QGIS and the topographic maps, not the ones we're looking at now, but the digital version that are available from USGS, and you can actually lay out the highest points, the highest elevation lines, and do what Bill was talking about if you're getting back where there are no maps for an area.
That's great. That's great. So any other issues that we need to look at that we want to collect right now? But anybody's got some issue that they think, well, this is a mapping issue from the Revolutionary era. We need to, where is the location of, or anybody got something else that we need to think about? We've got this one. We've got the Providence Road one. Anything else?
I'd like to say a couple other things. First of all, even though we have the de Brom and the Mouzon and the Cook maps, they're highly inaccurate. So you'd be wise to use something like the Wilson surveys or the Brown and Stone or something like that, because really those things are just notoriously bad. The other thing too is, if someone knows of any other a large scale plats or stuff like that, we can move backwards in time a little bit more from 1789, but because the ability to actually accurately know where you were and where one point was with respect to another, none of the maps before about 1775, 1780 are really reliable.
Well, I think we'll sort of pull things together a bit here as we come to the end of our hour. But Steve, thank you so much for putting this map together and making this happen, because really it's been a long-term plan of the Congress to actually make an interactive map. And what we have here is an interactive map. And we can put points on it, and it's not 100% perfect, but we're working on it, and we can really make this turn this into an excellent map, which can be useful for general interest or schools or whoever wants to use it, and it can be a repository for a lot of information. At the moment, we haven't developed an efficient system for submitting information or submitting questions. So at the moment, if you have any information or that you want to submit, or you want to ask a question, you can always contact the Charlotte Museum of History. You can go to the Historic Mapping Congress website. There's a link there. Or you can contact me at the Central Piedmont. You can find me quite easily there at Central Piedmont. So we've got, there's all kind of ways that you can get in contact, because we would like to keep this conversation going. We're a community of historians, and we want to bring as many voices into this, and as much information as possible, and investigate some of these really interesting topics. So, okay, well, here we are. Anything else that we wanted to talk about the composite map at this point?
Yeah, again, it's available for me. You can look at it on the website, but if you want the georeferenced maps, remember I have several versions of them with different more or less accuracies. But I can send you the base map, basically this map right here. I can send you this one if you zoom out. I can send you the brown and stone map. And notice also that it's a pretty extensive map. It's pretty good, and there are other fords that are shown on here besides just Tuckasegee. So that those are available too. It's not just paralyzed around Tuckasegee Ford. The maps itself can be used anywhere pretty much in this area. So that it would be available to anybody that wants it.
All right. Well, anything else about maps and the map? Maps on the map? Anybody else like to jump in here?
Oh yeah, I've got one other one too for Bill. Bill, if you want to try to put your thing about, because I talked to Guy about this a little bit, about your troop movements and stuff, I'll be happy to try to put these. There would be your stuff alone, it wouldn't be published anywhere. I just send them back to you. But if you want to do something like that, anybody's got some tracks or stuff you want that they actually have in latitude and longitude, or northings and eastings, or any other kind of rational coordinate system, I can put it on these maps for you and send it back to you.
Okay, well, thank you. I did promise a guy that I would provide some details of places. The problem with troop movements is off that is actually computed by Google itself. I send out the endpoints of a path, and Google actually calculates that on the fly and then returns that information. So there's a lot of interaction there between the server and the actual display. So that part might be a little bit complicated, but I can certainly give coordinates of sites and things like that. If that would be helpful. In fact, a guy asked me to do that many months ago.
Yeah, well, we could do
If
that.
that's useful to you, I can.
And see what we can do. If you want to, I'm happy to support it.
Okay, well, thank you. Could I add just one more insight here?
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Make it really short, but I've come to trying to find some sites in the past in the research and been confused about certain sites and trying to resolve where certain sites were and whatnot. And finally came to the kind of the resolution that, and this leads to Hugh's point about, or were there multiple roads used during seasons and whatnot. I don't know that they were used during different seasons, but there were certainly changes in the road in old roads that occurred very frequently, like moving around a property boundary, or finding just a shorter way down a hill or something like that. That happened all the time, and so I think the modern perception that we have, and I have difficulty getting out of my mind. There are actually two modern biases that I'm always having to correct myself on. And the one is that there was just one road when we talk that served for decades and decades. And that was not typically the case, because roads were often improved, and for no other reason than just to move around a property boundary or something like that. And then the other bias is that today, because of the postal system, we think of roads having official names, whereas back in 200 years ago, there was no postal system as we know it today. So one particular road wouldn't necessarily have one unique name. It might be called Charlotte Road. It might be called, the same road might be called Camden Road. It might be called a Wagon Road or the Great Road. They have multiple different names, and sometimes that can lead to confusion. So I think those of us today kind of sometimes approach the study of roads and thinking that with those two biases, one, that there was one particular road that was static over time, that was used in historical times, and also that roads had official names. So that's just an insight that I've had to learn the hard way.
That's fun. Yeah, that's right. It's true, isn't it? We tend to think in our modern way, but oh yeah, that's the road, there it is, and it's got that name. But 200 years ago, that's not the case. It might have been, depending on who you talk to, what they called it, if they called it anything. Just, oh, it's the road to Salisbury. Yeah. All right, good. Anything else, folks? Anything else? Well, I think perhaps we better pull it together here. It has, been a great day. We've had a lot of interesting interaction and discussions, and I think we come to the end of this event with the Historic Mapping Congress. Once again, thanks again very much to the museum, to the Charlotte Museum for hosting us here and making this all happen. And again, if you have any questions about anything or any suggestions or sudden inspirations, please send them to the museum or to check our website, the Historic Mapping Congress, or send them to me at Central Piedmont, or I'm sure if you wanted to contact any of our members of the Congress, just contact Steve, and that would be great. So back to Lauren. Okay, Lauren.
Well, thank you for letting us be a part of this today, Hugh. It's always fun to get a chance to see new research and learn about new technologies and the like. The museum is always excited to see what you guys are doing and what you're up to. As Hugh said, we are always happy to talk. charlottemuseum.org. You can also find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. And we're always happy to communicate there as well. And we do hope that you all will continue to stay engaged with the museum. charlottemuseum.org/events to see what's coming up. We have a number of fun digital programs on the book, as well as a few in-person events that occur throughout the year. We look forward to the opportunity to continue to be with you in your homes as we navigate a very different year here and a very different 2021 as well, I'm sure, and look forward to the chance to welcome everyone back to the museum in person again when it's safe to gather. So thank you all for allowing us to be a part of this today, and we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Great, Lauren. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye for now.